But what I'm interested in is it sounds like they're going to try, in a similar vein to how Epic's trying to encourage more creation with Fortnite, they're going to try and build some kind of marketplace thing for mod developers, from what I'm hearing on the grapevine. They've tried to do this before. They did like paid mods on Steam and it didn't go down well because in the similar way to how people in the Blender community are used to paying nothing, as soon as a price tag appears on a mod, they start losing their shit because it's like, oh, mods are always free, but that's not the point. Like, there will still always be free mods, but now you're going to get more mods of a higher quality because people can also make it their living, which is why we have like add-ons and art resources of a higher quality in Blender along with free projects. So it was a shame because the community kind of shut that down really quickly. But I think Bethesda haven't really lost sight of that. So what I'm hearing is they might try and do something similar again, because there was like some things about like depots for Skyrim appearing on Steam that kind of mentioned marketplace as a thing. They've always had like a massive mod culture for their games, so I don't know, it'll be interesting.
Single-handedly holding up Skyrim for the last 15 years.
No, that's impressive. That's like a case study in how do you market something for forever. Like, I remember when this is kind of funny, when I released like the Biogen add-on, which still needs like a lot of work, to bring it up to scratch and be something that's actually like properly useful. That's when I first started making like a bit of interesting money, even though it's free on YouTube. And I think I was kind of explaining to like my mum or something about like spending more time working on it. I think she said something to me like, oh, you can't live your whole life like just living off one thing. So I kind of like diversified. But when you look back at it, it's just like the amount of attention things get like doesn't really diminish. Like, I think I was having a look at the stats today. That add-ons had over 250,000 like page views and visits. This is separate from like 250,000 like transactions on Gumroad overall. And people keep downloading it. I get the notifications for Blender Market, and you kind of think, well, actually, maybe depending on how you like develop on things and market them, people can make a living out of just one project, which is interesting to think about. A bit risky, but possible.
I would say extremely risky from my experience.
Other people do it in this community. I'm not really up for that. That's why I've got like, different paid products and hoping to do a lot more. But there are like, I mean, you can probably name them off the top of your head. I'm not going to single anyone out, but like, yeah, there are a few people in the community kind of living off one or two things. But it makes sense if they're like really high quality and if they're still relevant.
Actually, as you mentioned, I can't quite think of anyone who does only one. Even the business folks.
Yeah. They're like, I think, again, I don't want to like say anyone's name, but there are quite a few successful ones have like 2 or 3, I would say. That are kind of like their flagship things. They kind of just like bounce between them. Even
now, I do think I qualify when you say that. I just have the Mimic, Curves to Roads, and then that one nanotech project. But then all the other ones are a little more low profile. I need to get better at marketing. Take a page out of Todd Howard's. Just keep releasing it every month until the end of time.
Say that you've got 16 times the features.
Yes. Now with Blender simulation nodes, we have 16 times the computing power at our disposal.
Yeah.
Which I will be able to do that in the future, once that comes out. I'm looking at the Blender dev chats at the moment, and they're working on the graphics behind the simulation nodes. Ooh, should the zones be colored purple? Should they be like this or that?
Well, like for the frames and stuff.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's what they're currently playing with.
It will all be customizable in the end, right? Because that's... So,
but for me, I'm so happy that they're talking about that, because I was like, okay, any words on simulation nodes? But if they're working on the aesthetics, that means that there's at least a baseline on functionality there.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds interesting. Yeah, I'm interested in giving that a try. How is simulation nodes accessible today? Because I remember you saying something about there was a branch and then there wasn't a branch, and is it kind of like... Has it been moved around?
So that's something I'm actually currently testing. The current version of simulation nodes that I have, allow me to double check on that when I downloaded it. That was on March 17th. I've been using the same simulation branch for over 2 months at the moment.
Right.
But I just downloaded the newest one, which is from April 6th. So I just need to extract that and see how it goes, because some people have mentioned how the simulation nodes are there, but there's no inputs, so they're currently broken.
Right, okay. Bit weird.
So I need to check if that's currently the case, or if they found like the old 3.5 one that's all decrepit and such.
I'm looking forward to giving it a try, because I think it will kind of revolutionize how a lot of people, myself included, play with geonodes. Because
Yes, as soon as we get the nested loops node, or wait, nested loops or for each loops, I forget.
however, yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, a for each loop. That will revolutionize everything. Because just yesterday I was working on a little cool animation that would be like books, but the essential thing was books that kind of rotate, but they kind of have collisions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that when they would like wobble around, they wouldn't clip through each other. And the only way I was able to make that work is by copying the node group 15 times, which, as you can imagine, is not what people want to do.
Yeah.
So the idea is have the loop and it just works. You could set it to, oh, let's set it to 30 or 50 or 100, or for every single vertice. Because now, well, let's just say that's a little bit impractical to set that up for 1,000 times. Like the one idea that I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's kind of a part of Blender, but kind of not really. It's to show the data value of, say, a float as a number on top of the vertice. Currently, you can only have one text thing spawning in for an entire object, for one node, essentially.
Right.
But with a for each loop, you can say, hey, spawn in a text object on this vertice with this number, and it'll be just fine, and then it'll just keep repeating that process for all of them. I hope it's not the most expensive thing on the planet, but it should be good for debugging.
Yeah, good for visualizing the data, how it changes.
Exactly, yeah. Because the spreadsheet, it's okay, but still a little, more for a computer rather than a human brain.
So maybe this should help with like some utility nodes as well, because for things like smoothing meshes with like iterations.
Yes, it definitely would, because the smooth node is a loop.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah, interesting, because I put one together the day before yesterday when doing like the GeoNodes experiments, and it just there's just some like basic things like that you think, oh wait, this is quite a fundamental feature that I just wish it was available. Also, that question I asked you about, can you take a mesh volume and modify it mathematically, like remove noise texture from it or something like that? I tried looking that up, and I saw like at least one other person ask the same question online, but I haven't seen like possible solutions yet.
They are talking about that.
Are they?
But like I forgot what they're called, but I think VDB nodes,
right?
Volume, because a volume is just a grid of values, the density values, and then color values or something like that. That depends on many other things. But there's no like geometry nodes acts on vertices at the moment, only vertices. If it's a curve, it acts on the points or the edges, but that's really just 2 vertices, or the face, which is 4. But volumes are a bit different. So do you treat each voxel as a quote-unquote vertice to manipulate on? And I think that's what VDB is trying to do. Right. But they haven't gotten those in yet, which is a tad annoying. But we'll see how that goes.
Interesting, yeah, because I feel like it'll be quite fundamental for a lot of generative effects. Being able to do like this kind of shape mathematics almost with volume spaces.
And you could do it before when you set the thing. But manipulating it after the fact, that's something that they haven't figured out yet. Again, because of the like voxel versus vertice problem. Yeah. So ETA on those nodes, I would say 1 year.
Generous. No, I'm kidding.
It's more a matter of like with GeoNodes development, from what I've seen, it's like, okay, it's coming, and then it's just paused, or it's, oh, we're working on, all of a sudden it's here. Okay, it's implemented.
I suppose
it highly depends on if the momentum dies out.
I don't know exactly what the production process is like for the Blender features, but it's like they have those milestones, but is there like flexibility inside of that, because you pay more attention to like the development process. If there's like a developer that has like a sudden spark of inspiration and wants to work on something, like can they go off and do that, or is it like they have to stick to like this strict rule of
From what I've seen, I don't know if this is for certain or not, but it seems like they can. Like there are many tests that happen like, oh, here's this node that I made a mock-up for, here's this one. But the ones that make it, I would say is around 25%.
right?
Which is a little unfortunate for me. Like one of them was the UV tangent node, which would be extremely useful. That the one video I made making my own, that got more views than I would like to admit, because it's just a basic thing that should be in there by default. But unfortunately it's not there, so we have to make it. So they were developing it. There's a version of the node that works, but it's not implemented either because the like final polished review process isn't, they haven't done that yet, or it's just like in storage for the moment.
Do you know,
I don't want to say too much about the development because I'm not that knowledgeable of it. I just watch it and see kind of some patterns that emerge, but I don't know what the official process is.
yeah, and people probably know that you watch. We spoke about that the other day, didn't we? But it's not like you're just suddenly admitting to it, like on a recording.
Oh no, I watch it every day, every minute of every day.
Yeah.
Sarcasm heavily implied.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, it's like I'm not going to bring up drama. Obviously, no names and stuff. But I did see. I don't know if I actually sent you this, but on the matter of feature requests, kind of see where I'm going a bit with that.
Yes, I do.
I did see someone post a tweet saying if a Blender YouTuber had made the same proposal, there would be Kickstarters, there would be petitions, there'd be like massive waves of like, you know, support and all of this.
Could you send me the example just so that we can keep it, keep it a little under wraps, but I want to see if we're in sync about this because I think I'm thinking about something else.
I'm recording the screen, and let me it'll take a while to find it. I'll send it to you.
No worries.
So basically, it was like related to that drama phase and saying that if a Blender YouTuber had done it, then it would be the reaction would be totally different. And I got annoyed reading that because I thought total bullshit. Because I tried to bring up at the GeoNodes meeting. I wanted to have like a little bit of input, and at that time we were talking about like node presets and things which would be like handy like for people, because they're starting to prepackage things in. I remember asking like, would it be possible to have a place where like people that are actually like using this and pushing Blender to its limits, where they can say, hey, these are going to be the most useful like node groups for people, like functionally. And I was told we'd rather people do it themselves. So I tried to push forward for a feature and I got shut down on it. So people, that comment annoyed me because it was like this whole double standards thing. If a Blender YouTuber said it, and I'm like, well, no, I tried to push an idea forward, but I respect the development like philosophy for that, because for Blender, it really is like, if you want something done, do it yourself, contribute to the community, etc. Don't just be a naysayer and like, complain, ask, beg, etc.
Yeah.
Ideas and complaints aren't impressive. Building things for people is impressive. So I get the design philosophy.
On the topic of feature requests and a little bit of drama, every once in a while in the Blender chat, someone will just pop in and be like, hey, can I have this in geometry node? Each time a little bit of secondhand embarrassment happens, and then the devs are like, no, that's outside the scope of the project. They're very nice about it, which I'm very impressed by, because some people are a little bit like, oh, we should have this feature already and all of that. But yeah, I just want the tangents, man.
The devs are probably aware that if they say anything too harsh, it'll get screenshotted if it's like one of these public chats. Yeah, I don't know, it's crazy.
Are you working as their PR team?
I'm everyone's PR manager. I don't know what's happening. But no, the weird thing about Blender is, again, like talking about feature requests, some people get so demanding that I feel like a lot of people just forget that it's an open source project.
It's free, bro.
There's nothing to stop you from making those features yourself. Like, just take the code, make it. It's not like one thing is being forced on everyone, but obviously it's, there's an intelligence barrier behind that. It's easier to complain and ask for features than to build them yourself. So yeah, but I always find it weird. It's like, you can just take the code. Oh well.
There's also the accessibility thing where some people are like, I want to do this, but say I don't want to make an add-on for it
Yeah.
along those lines. Example, me. But
Yeah.
the thing that I'm very happy about, especially with geometry nodes, is that we're getting the accessibility to do more inside of Blender. Like with the for each loops, with the simulation nodes coming out, it's like, oh, now we have the tools so that we can make stuff. Because my favorite example for simulation nodes was trails. Like, oh, you know, in every game where the sword would have a trail or something like that that was dynamically spawned in.
Yeah.
You could not do that in Blender. There was no way to do it in that way. And the first time I tried doing that was with my Tron project, where they would have like the light trails coming off.
Yeah.
You just couldn't do that, where it would trace the position behind perfectly. Even with the cloth sims, even with the soft body sims, you just couldn't do it. So now with geometry nodes, well, we can, with simulation nodes and even with the buffer hack. But now that we have those tools, now if you're like, I want a trail tool. Well, now you could customize it to whatever you want, but now we can do it without having to touch code.
Oh, that's good. And I remember your Tron projects. I was so impressed with all that. Everything was just like perfect.
Yeah, perfect to the viewer. Let's just say that. Funny story with that project. I went through and I was like, why are these files so heavy? Turns out when I baked the normal maps for one of the characters, they were uncompressed, completely uncompressed. So they were like, I forget how big they were. They were in the range of like 50 to 100 megabytes per each texture. Or more, I forget. But in the file, it was like half a gigabyte. And I was like, what? There's only like a few objects, a few textures. How could it be that bad? It was all uncompressed. So I went through and I had to do this for like 5 or 6 files of mine, but I just had to go and just simply save those images to the desktop, which would automatically compress them. You know, there's the little slider for that. And then just repack the things and it would just work. And it would work beautifully. So that's how I got my past file size under 30 gigabytes.
Good. That reminds me, I got a help request through. There was a really confusing one about Shadowcatcher not working, and we ended up coming to the conclusion that the file was just cursed. We did find the reason in the end, like a few days later. But anyway, when they sent the file through, it was like 100 and something megabytes, but it was just like a Suzanne head and a couple of other objects, and I was like, this shouldn't be 100 and something megabytes. So I had a look at the HDRI, and I don't think it was a big HDRI, but then I looked in like the Blender file in the outliner, and there were 2 HDRIs in there, and one of them was massive. And I removed it. It took out like 90 megabytes of the 100. Wow. And I was like, wow, like it's easy to lose. Yeah.
For the longest time, I just never looked, you know, the in the outliner, there's the Blender file little tab where you could see all the textures and stuff. For the longest time, I just never looked at it.
It's very handy.
Whenever I would want to like take materials out of the scene, I would just remove all the users, close out Blender, reopen Blender, close Blender, then reopen Blender, and that would delete them. Which was a very dumb way of doing it. But then nowadays I'm like, okay, just go in there, delete all the textures I don't need, delete all the materials I don't need, delete all the object data that I don't need if there's like a phantom object in there, and then it would be so much better.
Yeah, all right, give me 1 sec, because I just got a phone call.
Yep, no problem.
Hang on.
Nice case, by the way. Welcome to the Ben Only podcast, where we go and... Oh, wait. Kurt. He could still hear me.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Sorry, it's just a conversation about food.
Speaking of which, I need to start thinking about that.
What's on the menu for today?
I don't know. I went shopping yesterday. Oh, groceries are so expensive. Welcome to the adult. Groceries are so expensive these days. You go to just buy peanut butter, jelly, and some pasta, and maybe, I forgot what else I got, some bananas. Then all of a sudden, you've already spent $15, and it's just like, where did all that go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid of hitting that point, because I don't have to pay for food at the moment, but one day I will. But I have like a kind of saving method where right now, whenever I make money, I throw the majority of it into savings and pretend it doesn't exist. And I try and leave myself with just a small amount and just pretend that's all I have. And, you know, just like kind of, if that goes really low, I get anxious, forgetting all the other stuff. Like, because I just feel like it teaches you to be resourceful.
Yeah. But yes, the weather, all the trees are coming back to life. I see the leaves starting to grow. I sent you the pictures yesterday, so the lighting that day was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. I wanted to see if I could take some of those images and then do some VFX stuff on them, but VFX is not my strong suit, especially with Eevee.
Yeah, I don't really know too much about that either, but yeah, there were some pretty pictures.
What were we talking about? Oh, right, finances.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my stuff, savings, I'm just like, that's for either when I want to buy a house or something bad happens. But just throw a certain amount, I don't want to be too specific, in there. I'm just like, okay, yep, we made the profit threshold, there we go. And that's good.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like I keep a couple on like the front, should we say, and that's like the kind of, okay, well, this is your active amount, and try and keep it around that. If it goes too far off, just cut it off. Oh, that doesn't exist, etc. And then
yeah, and I have a certain portion, one of my income streams, thank you to all the people who sponsor me on Gumroad and Blender Market, that I have is the treat yourself income, where I get to buy myself some things I want. So that laptop that I took to that field that one day and took that quote unquote touch grass picture, that was sponsored by those folks. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, it's a very generous community.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Speaking of which, very grateful for the people that picked up modular workspaces v1.5. That was very cool. I was quite proud of that video. Because I was kind of wondering whether to just talk about the new features, but then I figured, well, a lot of people probably watch it that haven't heard of it before. So I kind of went back through everything, and editing it was one of those videos you come away from thinking, I did pack quite a lot of information into it, and I was quite happy with like the presentation and all that, because I'm not always happy. Sometimes I watch the videos back and I just feel like you could have been a bit more enthusiastic, talking to myself. But no, the modular workspaces one was pretty good, and people supported it, and it made a big difference on like the earning for the year, because I said that like the first few months weren't particularly good. But then again, talking about earnings, I said that I did my tax kind of thing for the year, and it seems like, despite my concerns, things were actually pretty okay for the last year. Up until this point, I had been kind of raising my income every year for 3 years, which was like fantastic, because it was like, hey, someone can make a job like out of being a YouTuber. Wow, this is great. This was the first year it went down, but when you look at it on like a graph, it's just a straight line rather than going down. It didn't go down by hardly anything, but it basically meant that this exponential growth, because it was exponential, just plateaued. So I'm not complaining about that, because that's
is
still
that
good.
the COVID
No,
effect?
it's just things got better during COVID, because there were more people watching, more people buying. It was all just more active.
Yeah. Other companies kind of had something similar, where they would hire a ton of people, and then now we're seeing the layoffs, which is very sad. Very sad.
I think COVID contributed to that exponential growth. When I say exponential, it's not like I'm rich, because I'm not. It was just like going from not a living to half a living to a living, and then like kind of going a bit better. But now it's just plateaued. But that's, like I said, that's fine. And it kind of just reinforces the fact that it's probably a better idea to continue working on products. It's every time I have like a self-sabotage moment, every time I doubt it, whenever I release something that I actually put effort into, it always seems to pay for the time that was put into it, which is like a really good sign. So yeah, it's nice to have that option available. In fact, I think there's like a bit of like a priority issue that I have. I really want to keep like the engagement up on YouTube, because I like community feel and stuff like that, but a lot of the content's actually really difficult to prepare. But at the same time, it's like £100 and something a month, like income. I don't really mind sharing that, because it's like, okay, you can't live on that. But the value comes in the audience being interested in future projects, etc. So there's always this weird thing, because you compare these things which have two completely different types of value. One's like a marketing value and a community culture value, and the other's like an actual just profit value. And I'm not too interested in like money as like the be all and end all, but when you're kind of juggling all these things, you have that kind of societal pressure of, oh, you need to make a certain amount to be considered, succeeding. Then it's like you're kind of like always just jumping between these things and trying not to let it make you mad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because who are you if you don't have a monetary income that's this amount? Especially these days with inflation.
It's just that, like, you want to make enough so that you don't have to worry about it. But then when
Yeah.
something does come along, or when stats start going low, you start worrying about it again. So it's like you kind of have this relaxed period where it's like, okay, maybe we'll do community things for a while. And then the stats start going low, and you're like, oh no, maybe that was a really bad idea because we didn't see this coming. And it's like, kind of go back up and down again.
It's the, I guess a fallacy of infinite growth. Like, oh, I have to keep growing all the time. Which for us, we're rather young, so we do have a lot of grow. But there's always that thing in the back of my head, like, wait, why aren't you making more on Gumroad this month rather than last month's?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that, you're doing other stuff. You need to make more. There's no option to go less.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of, it's more sensible for you to keep track of all like the spreadsheet data for like if you're doing better or worse. And I used to do that, but I noticed that it was just kind of not helping with the mental health side of things because what I used to do was I would also color code it. So when I made less for a certain website on a particular month, I would make it red. So you could see like these patterns of red and green. And I thought, well, this is actually just kind of being
Maybe
really
it's
mean.
not the best idea to
Yeah,
make
exactly.
to reduce my effort and all of that to a color on a screen that I can see in 0.3 seconds.
Yeah, like it's one thing when
I think if I did that, that would wreck me.
Yeah, when other websites are doing it to you, it's easy to complain about it. When you're doing it to yourself, it's just sadistic. It's so, yeah, not a good idea. But
Yeah. I do kind of want to do that one time. It's kind of just that, ooh, look at me. I have my own like stock exchange. But then again, looking at all the folks that are into that, they're not doing too well.
Oh, well. Yeah, last year I said I was going to spend this year working more on products and stuff. Not just because of money, but because it's also quite fulfilling. One of the, it's a lot more interesting than other types of videos. It's a lot more interesting for me working on products and tutorials. The reason is because you're actually like creating something new, like a new tool that can be used. Also, when you're talking about the new features, if it's something you're quite excited about, you kind of visualize people getting excited about it as well. And that's really fun. It's like when we watch like the Apple conferences and stuff. And I really love watching those kinds of productions because it's like, oh, you're about to feel excited about something and they're kind of like leading you through it. And I like that. Like that's a feeling I want to try and capture more in the future. But yeah, there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm having a bit of a struggle at the moment trying to work on community roundups because my attention span has definitely gotten way worse.
Did you download TikTok?
I did download TikTok. Not that I use it.
Okay. I was joking, but okay.
I don't use it as like a social thing, and I don't watch content on it. I just post my reels to it. Basically, I'm exploiting
I did try that, but it turns out even when I mentioned on my Twitter is not TikTok, folks.
Yep,
Which,
that's true.
In hindsight, I should have expected.
Oh, look, I've got 83 followers now. So there's a few. And I haven't been participating in anything socially on there. I've just been posting the exact same things I put on Twitter and Instagram on there. So it just builds up over time. And you can schedule on TikTok, so that makes it easy from the desktop. So it's like, It doesn't take much effort to put stuff on there. But about the community things, I've been having trouble researching people's channels and projects because just sitting there and like watching someone else's content, even if you are interested, it's really difficult. Like, even when I proof watch my own videos, it's such a struggle not to doodle and like look down and do something else while it's playing. So yeah, and when you think about the community things, sometimes there are like 15 to 20 projects you've got to sit down and watch and assess and make notes about, and it's getting a bit tricky. So I want to try and find...
That sounds like a job for your assistant.
Yeah, I have been thinking about it. There are ways to get transcripts of YouTube videos through the API, so we can probably do that and then condense things down and get it to explain things. There are other things that can be done, but I don't know.
And then you wait for the video version of GPT.
Yeah, I keep training a voice model.
I do wonder when they'll be making a version that can either respond to audio or video, or both. It's definitely going to be a thing.
I can make a version which responds to audio now, but there's a kind of like a Python virtual thing where I can't use PyTorch at the moment. But yeah, that like the responding to audio is very possible, but the creating audio is different. I don't really want to do like content which overuses AI. I only really want to do it for preparation and editing. Everything inside the video I want to be me. But all the other stuff, the file moving, the file processing, who wants to do that? So
Yep.
yeah.
You're doing the good thing about AI. You're having it do the dull, repetitive work while you're focusing on the creative aspect.
Yeah, all the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Just hold my beer while I go and use ChatGPT to generate all of my next idea.
Yep. You know, the more I've been playing,
that was a joke. I do not think that landed whatsoever.
Actually, it's kind of a good idea. The more I've been playing with it, the more I've realized that it can be really easily like hyper specialized to an individual, and like everything you make can become a part of the data set which trains it, or becomes like part of a complex system message to kind of direct it or something like that. So the more work you do, if you have a process for like saving the important lessons from that work or how like your audience responded to it, it's more data to help what is effectively a prediction model tell you whether something's gonna do well or not. Not that that should be the be all and end all, but it's really easy to make now. So it's kind of like if you have the option of maybe using it or not using it, and if it's easy to make, then probably would. But yeah, I don't know. I've been really enjoying the experiments with the GPT stuff. You saw last night they started doing like a kind of conversational version.
Yeah, with the what was the voice model? But you attached a voice to it.
PyTTSX3, I think, was the module. It's just like an offline text-to-speech thing.
Oh, I just remembered something I tried. So this was probably back in like 2010, 2012. But with my computer, I wanted something that would, an assistant where I would type run Minecraft. And it would say, okay, running Minecraft. It was a bat file, but it worked. So I would click on the bat file, it would open up a menu, and then it would say, hello, Ben, I'm the Minecraft control panel. What do you want me to do? And then I would say, run Minecraft or run something else, and it would be, okay, running Minecraft. Then I would do it, and I felt like, I was building Jarvis at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of cute.
It's funny how that idea is still there. It's just evolved into something useful.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you can train models, but you don't even need to, because like I showed you last night when we did my little rambly ADD like paint thing, there are creative ways that you can have like a really largely trained GPT that is effectively just like 50 personalities at once, like trained on different data sets, which you could change. So there's already so many possibilities for like having it help you in like specialist parts of the workflow or coming up with good ideas. And yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot to play with. I want to give it. Oh, so one thing I showed you this morning was the medical prediction model, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So when I get that working, what I want to do, because I've got like years worth of medical notes, if I can get it all like into a good format, I want to pass it through a programmed version of it, so not the interface, and see what it says, just as like a proof of concept for people.
I do wonder if it was trained on like all the Yahoo Answers stuff, so you'll get the most unhinged, like, oh, you have this many diseases, and you will die in the next.
That's why it's all the interpretation is based on a character set. What I mean is, you saw like this is going to be very confusing for people that aren't listening, but I did a thing where you can tell ChatGPT that its job is only to interpret patterns in strings of text. So you can basically explain the format of the text, but inside of the text are kind of delimiters and character sequences. But the character sequences represent things, and you can tell it, well, okay, well, this character sequence represents that the person was doing this on a particular day. It represents they were doing this at this time instead. And this represents that they had these symptoms, and this represents that they were better or worse at this time. So basically, you just have what's essentially a pattern of data, characters and numbers. And you tell it, okay, can you identify potential patterns in this data set? Oh, when you do identify patterns, here's what the characters represent. And then it basically constructs a narrative and says, okay, well, we've interpreted the sequence, we've seen a pattern, and we can see that when someone goes for a run in the morning, they are more likely to feel like this on these days. And it's actually really, really good at doing that. And the good thing about that is, fundamentally, that data set can be anything. So I'm using it for like medical symptom prediction, but you could do things like, oh, what's the behavior of whales around the world, or like weather prediction models or stuff like that. So just taking that kind of principle, and again, it's just like there are so many different applications. Even
This means that the amount of data that can be extracted out of a data set can be so much more.
The really interesting thing about it, though, is that not just is it pattern recognition, but interpreting what the patterns mean. After you tell it, well, this character sequence represents this. It constructs a narrative afterwards. So even though it's just a jumble of like numbers and letters, it says, we can see this person likes to go for walks on this kinds of day. They like to have caffeine in the mornings. They like to have hot showers in the evenings. And it's like, whoa, like you found a pattern and you interpreted what it meant. That's like really
Companies
impressive.
are going to have a field day with that.
Yeah.
Oof. It's good thing I don't have all my data. Checks Google.
Yeah. But that's like the scary thing, is I'm finding that really easy to put together. I don't know if other people have figured out that you can do that with it yet. But it's really
That does sound very interesting, because that could be used to track your mood, and you could have an AI tell you what makes you happy, and that is a whole jumble of, that's going to lead to some interesting ethical problems, but...
Yeah, if you track how you're feeling properly, and if you create a format to basically turn it into a data set, and then if you can describe how that data set is parsed, then it will do the rest. So
like a Google spreadsheet.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. That's why I think it's like, I understand the potential of these things because I've done a lot of parser work in the past. Parsers in PARSER. So like interpreting data. So I already kind of understand what it can do. So, but it's just really interesting, like doing these little experiments and going, oh shit, that actually works. Like I didn't expect it would actually do that.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing with new technology. It's like, oh wait, that does work? I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be it's very interesting seeing you play around with this, because it's stuff that I haven't seen it done before. Like I haven't seen like the little agents, I guess they're called. You know, you see people talking about that all the time on Twitter, trying to get your money. Yeah. But seeing you trying to apply in I want just a digital assistant to help me with my content creation, it's very interesting. And now seeing this new thing for a more personal aspect, incredibly interesting.
I'm so used to, like with development projects, you're so used to having like a pipe dream idea and then immediately being aware of the hurdles behind it. This has been really interesting because you have a pipe dream idea and then you're expecting a hurdle. Then like I'm in the shower, I'm like mulling over it, I'm going for a walk, I'm thinking about it, and I can't see a hurdle. And this is like one of those really weird situations where it's like...
Are we here?
Yeah, it's like suddenly all of these ideas, and I'm just waiting for the hurdle to like make itself known, like logically, but I'm like, no, actually... we could have multiple things, but we can use like a kind of router and we can have it like bounce the signal back again. So basically it's like what I was trying to explain to you, like that 30 personality at once GPT idea. I was thinking, hey, is that actually possible? And I was like, yeah, because you can just hide that like sending the signal back again process from the user, and then it works functionally. There's another thing that I probably need to explain to people. But it's just like the more you think about these things, I'm going, there are no roadblocks there now for like a lot of these things. And so it's very easy to feel excited about it and just go, wait, I haven't seen anyone like do that yet. So I think what we have is something that can make a lot of industries redundant, because it's going to make a lot of algorithms redundant. Because I was trying to actually gave Ben like a very small, really chaotic lecture yesterday about how, in my mind, I don't see ChatGPT or these language processing models as chatbots. I see them as, I'm going to adjust the term to LPU, logical processing units, where if you think about CPU and transistors, they consider zeros and ones. They basically consider electromagnetism, and it's just objective Boolean values. And from that, you combine them together and you can get things like photorealistic ray tracing. And we're like, wow, that's so cool. That's like an abstract representation of something really cool we can get from something so fundamental and objective. But these LPUs, like OpenAI, are such a tech tree upgrade above CPUs in the fact that they don't consider zeros and ones, they consider yes and no. So when you think about interpreting logic. The potential for algorithms you can design by combining yes-no logic processors is like impossible to imagine. And I know it's a bit of a stupid idea, like visualizing it this way, that the difference from a 0 and a 1 to photorealistic ray tracing, if you consider the difference from a yes and no logic processor to whatever the hell the equivalent would be that we can't even imagine yet. So again, taking that example of this medical symptom processing tracking, of being able to not only identify patterns, but also explain them. Again, we aren't really seeing people use it for that yet. But considering how much better it'll get at that, and combining that 1,000,000-fold across every industry, like there are so many industries that could disappear like overnight if people realize that potential. So yeah, I just think it's mad. I'm calling them LPUs, logical processing units. So
yeah,
it's kind of scary.
I was rewatching CGP Gray's Humans Need Not Apply. And it's interesting seeing how some of what he said, like self-driving cars, haven't arrived yet, and they've been arriving for the past like 8 years or so. Yeah. But now this is showing up, and it might do exactly what he said, steamrolling a lot of industries, basically automating quite a bit of the data analysts.
Yeah.
And all that, and also AI art, another thing that we didn't see coming, but is steamrolling some aspects of the creative community.
Again, it's another one of those things where like the AI art is an interesting thing to see because people didn't expect it, but also I just think it's distracting from like the actual important things you can do with it. Like
I do like how the image generators came out first and then ChatGPT came out second, because all the people are hopping on that now. Yeah. And now that community has calmed down quite a bit from we're going to take over everything. I'm not saying all the that are into AI are doing that. I'm just saying some of that vibe was passed around, the fear was passed around. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, I don't know. It does feel like there's this weird dissonance thing going on between the perception of the tools and what they can actually be used for. That's okay.
Like the AI art programs, those were made to recognize things, not necessarily to create. The creation is kind of a side effect of that. Because if you can imagine something, well, then you can print it, but your imagination is also so that you can visualize other things that you may encounter. I'm not sure if I said that correctly.
That makes sense. It's like what I was saying about you could use that pattern recognition for medical tracking or tracking the behavior of whales or like meteorology and stuff like that it applies to any industry. The same kind of base technology for the AI art can be used again for all other kind of generative simulation like type industries. Mm-hmm. And it just feels really weird that there's like this huge elephant in the room that people just aren't paying attention to, but they're focusing in on like these really, I don't want to say pointless because they're kind of cool, but pointless like use cases for it compared to like what it can do for humanity. So yeah, it's interesting. I think I have a feeling that there are some people that do really understand what I've been saying about how this can be applied to so many industries. I think what might happen is we might look back on this time and go, oh, maybe OpenAI shouldn't have made an API publicly available for people, because I don't see how realistically they can track all the use cases for it. Obviously, I think they do have measurements in place, but still, I think that
like once an open source version of it comes out, like there's going to be a lot of damage.
There are
a lot of good stuff, but a lot of damage.
There are some already, I believe, but yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Though it is funny how even with Google's alternative, and I think there's another alternative out there, I forget, but ChatGPT is the one on top and has been for 6 months to 9 months at this point, where you would assume with this new technology booming, there would be a new lead every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it is a little scary.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want it to stagnate for a while. It kind of goes to like about the the open letter to OpenAI asking them to not develop ChatGPT anymore for a while. I watched Max Tegmark on Lex Friedman because I remember reading his book when it came out. Life 3.0 was very good. But they were basically saying about how, okay, it's moved a bit too quickly. It's dangerous teaching it how to code, and it's dangerous having an API, because when you consider ChatGPT as like this LPU, as I was trying to describe, a logical processing unit, and you combine layers of them together, and then you combine those into layers of abstraction, and then those into more layers of abstraction, what you get on top is something unbelievably powerful that people can't even visualize. So maybe it's not a good idea giving all that power to the public. But letting it stagnate for a while so people can actually realize what can be done with it, rather than going full throttle and making it better and better and better when we don't know, like, actually whether there's malicious use cases, kind of being developed right now, because that could be quite problematic further down the line. I think we'll probably look back and go, oh, maybe it wasn't such a good idea. But
I like, everyone's going to go to like the Terminator outcome. Like the outcome I see happening is that companies will become so efficient that it will be detrimental to, us, with all the jobs going, not all, but, a majority of like the data analyst jobs just going kaput, and then being so freakishly accurate. Like with your pattern recognition one, just imagine now companies have all that power in their hand. Before, things had to be tagged in order to recognize the patterns. But now this one will just do it in a snap, and it's like, okay, oh, you wanted to see what Marvel movies were the most successful and which ones would bring in the most money? Oh, now we can see the entire pattern for all that. So now we're going to be in the era with the most accurate content and ads imaginable. So
yeah, it's interesting because I think I mentioned this to you in my mentions on YouTube. I noticed that I've been tagged in a video which I'm pretty sure is AI generated, and it was literally just showing two videos. It was mine and it might have been Smeef's, but it was a short, and there was narration on top of it, but it was text-to-speech narration. And it was just something like, this video is about this video is about this, and then it ends. And I'm like, interesting. I think someone's AI generating videos that are just showing content, effectively doing like the similar things to the community stuff, but in a low-effort way, and I've just been caught up in one of those. So that's a little bit concerning. But I think, hopefully, things should be still easy for people to identify as being fake. But, how long for?
For the time being, lots of fun and scary things. Like, on one hand, I'm very much for I like the disruptive technology because that means, life will get more interesting and eventually will become better. But I do see it becoming worse before it gets better. So lots of, I don't know. Do we want things to stay stable and consistent, or do we want things to be severely shaken up? And then from those ashes, a new... Let's see, how poetic can I put this? Societal status, I guess. Yeah, I completely lost that. Societal order, a new societal order comes out of that.
It just reminded me of X-Men Apocalypse. It had like this terrible dialogue. And from the ashes, we'll build a better one. I'm just like...
Oh, I remember that.
It's such a bad film.
The effects in those were really good. I need to try geometry noticing some of that.
Oh, yeah. One thing I did like about that was when Magneto's kind of doing the thing at Auschwitz, they make it look like a magnetic kind of pole thing as all the stuff's flying around. That was quite clever.
The context didn't hit me until a little while later, so I was like, wait a second. Right. Yeah. I forgot the story behind that character.
Yeah. All right.
So AI, so we kind of did the whole circle of life with a podcast. AI, products, and
existential adult,
personal finances, shopping, all of that. So yeah, quite nice.
Yeah, maybe I'll leave it there. But thank you for having a chat.
Yeah, no worries.
Ooh,
it's fun as always.
I've never done this before. You pick an emoji.
I get to. This is nice. Let's see. Is there one for caramel? Let me look up the emoji list real quick.
Yeah, let's see.
There's some caramel ones. How about a chocolate heart?
Is that one? Chocolate?
I think there may. I'm just checking.
There kind of is. There's like a heart with a bow on it. Chocolate heart. Yeah,
chocolate heart with a bow is just Easter very recently, so I think that would be a good one.
Yes. So if you made it this far through the video, please put a heart with a bow in it, otherwise known as a chocolate heart. If you're on Windows, you can press the... Do you know the combination?
I do not know.
It's the Windows key and the period key, and it brings up an emoji keyboard.
Thank you for letting me know. I will...
Yeah, it's very useful.
Let me try that out.
Yeah, it means you don't have to look things up on the internet.
Yeah. Heart, chocolate. Oh wait, I'm not sure if that... Yeah, there's very few Windows chocolate emojis.
We'll put something. People will put like hearts and chocolates.
It'll something chocolatey.
Alrighty. Right. Well, thank you. And I will end the recording. Goodbye, everyone.
See you, everyone. Thanks for watching.